What is going on, everyone? This is Eric coming at you from just outside of Hartford, Connecticut. Today, we're going to be discussing one of my favorite trades. It's going to be the December 15th, 2009 trade that sent Doc Halladay from the Toronto Blue Jays to the Philadelphia Phillies and starting pitcher Cliff Lee from the Phillies to the Mariners. And yes, full disclosure, I am aware that these were technically two separate trades. It's just easier for me to group them together like this. So, of course, it's color-coded as always, and we will jump right in and start with the Phillies, who got starting pitcher Roy Halladay from the Toronto Blue Jays, as well as a trio of prospects in pitcher J.C. Ramirez, relief pitcher Philip Amont, and outfielder Tyson Gillis, all from Seattle, while Toronto got catcher Travis d'Arnaud, pitcher Kyle Trebek, and outfielder Michael Taylor, all from Philadelphia, and Seattle got starting pitcher Cliff Lee from Philadelphia as well. So we'll start off with the Phillies and how they did in this trade. So why did this trade happen, I should say? Toronto was in a position where they needed to rebuild, so they wanted future assets. Halladay was clear that he wasn't going to be a part of their next real championship run, so they said, okay, we're going to give him a chance to go somewhere. Philadelphia at this point in time is coming off back-to-back NL pennants, so it makes sense for them to acquire a star, an ace, all that good stuff. Well, Seattle was looking to acquire an ace to hopefully help match Felix Hernandez and carry the team into the postseason for the first time in a while. So Philadelphia obviously gets Roy Halladay. He's a big player in this trade, and he has a strong impact immediately for the Phillies. So he actually throws a perfect game against the Marlins on May 29th, 2010. So that's his first season in Philadelphia. And from there, he was just continuously dominant. Later in the season, he ends up throwing a no-hitter against the Cincinnati Reds. And this was in the playoffs. It's the only no-hitter in the playoffs, in the history of the playoffs. There has been a perfect game as well. And Halladay just continued from there. He continued to be dominant in 2011, 2012. 2013, he ended up dealing with numerous injuries. And he retired after the 2013 season with a nagging injury. So he had essentially 3 very good seasons in Philadelphia, and he just solidified himself as a no-brainer Hall of Fame talent. As for the other 3 players that the Phillies got for Cliff Lee, J.C. Ramirez, he spent a half season in Philadelphia before he would walk, and it wasn't that great. Philip Amont, he bounced between the minors and the majors for 4 seasons. Most of his time was spent in the minor leagues, and then he ended up leaving the team as a free agent. And Tyson Gillis, he never made it to the big leagues. So all in all, Philadelphia did get Roy Halladay, but the haul they got for Lee was not good. Now, Toronto is a bit of an oddity here. So Travis d'Arnaud, he was actually, he spent a couple seasons in the minors for them, but he never made to the big leagues, and he was a centerpiece in the trade that sent him to the New York Mets in exchange for R.A. Dickey. That trade has been broken down in a previous video a while back, a few months ago. Michael Taylor, we'll get to him now too. Michael Taylor was also involved in a trade, and he was traded in the Matt Halladay trade breakdown video. We did discuss that trade, the Matt Halladay trade breakdown video, I should say. So there's those two. So the only player that we're going to really discuss for Toronto is pitcher Kyle Trebek, and he bounced between the minors and the majors for 5 seasons for Toronto before being waived, so he wasn't that great either. So, yeah. And lastly, we have Seattle, and Seattle ends up making some moves. But with Cliff Lee, he was pretty good over a half season, but the team just wasn't doing good, so they ended up trading him. And they trade him alongside relief pitcher Mark Lowe to the Texas Rangers in exchange for 4 players in first baseman Justin Smock, a starter pitcher named Blake Bevan, second baseman Matt Lawson, and relief pitcher Josh Luick. So how did these guys do in Seattle? Well, Justin Smock started off well, but he would cool off as time went on. And he was waived after 4.5 years, but solid pickup for Seattle. Matt Lawson, just get to him for a second here. He never made the majors. Blake Bevan, He was actually decent in parts of 3 years for Seattle before he left the team. Solid enough, best player that they got in this trade. And Josh Luick, he spent part of one season in the league, in the majors for them before he was shipped to Tampa Bay in exchange for catcher first baseman John Jesso, who himself spent one solid season in Seattle before he left. So how did the other teams do? We'll start with Texas just because they got Cliff Lee. And Cliff Lee had a good half season, a pretty good half season for Texas. He did get he had a couple iffy starts, but other than that, he was pretty good for the team before he walked in free agency. And Mark Lowe, he was a solid reliever for 2 years before he left the team. And last but not least, Tampa Bay with Josh Luick. He spent most of his 2.5-year stint in the organization down in the minors before he was released. So all in all, who won this trade? If you go by WAR, Philadelphia did better than everyone else combined, and that's solely based on Roy Halladay. They got a 15.6 WAR out of the players they got. Seattle gets a 9.6, mostly from Cliff Lee, John Jesso here, and then, of course, Bevan and Smuck. Both did pretty decently. Toronto gets a negative 0.1, but again, they get R.A. Dickey and, I don't remember exactly who they got in the Matt Halladay trade breakdown video, so definitely check that one out for Michael Taylor, but they do get a decent amount of players, so, their WAR is incomplete at negative 0.1. And then Texas gets a 2.0 out of their 2 players, while Tampa Bay gets the short end of the stick with a negative 0.8. But I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. This was a Roy Halladay trade breakdown. Don't worry, I will be doing a video about Roy Halladay at some point, probably soon. But have a great day, guys.